In this video, we're collecting the 6 infinity stones of editing, and with them, you'll be able to make those insane TikTok style fan edits with just a snap. Trust me, nobody on YouTube has done what I'm about to do, because in this course, we're unlocking 6 core powers that'll take your edits from mid to god tier. From the edit idea, to effects, to transitions, to text animations, to color correction, and finally SFX. And when you bring them all together, it will snap people out of their mind. So let's begin. Okay, first things first, let's create a new composition. I'm gonna name this edit tutorial. But before we even think about editing, there's something else that we must think about before, and that is the resolution in which you want your edit to be. For platforms like TikTok and Shorts, vertical formats work best. For example, you could choose a 1080 by 1920 for a full vertical, or a 1080 by 1080 for square resolution. But in my case, I want something slightly different, so I'll go with 1500 by 1080. For the frame rate, I'm gonna leave it at 30 FPS. Now, for the duration, make sure that it matches the exact length of your edit audio. Once everything is set, just hit OK and your composition is ready. Now, one last thing that we must take into consideration is the file organization. So, what you want to do is just click on this folder and create a folder for everything that we essentially need. I created one folder for placing the comps, and now I'm going to drag our main comp into this folder. Finally, we're going to import our audio into the project and then into the timeline. Now, regarding the audio, you can choose an edit audio and you won't have to worry about editing the music. To do that, you can go to platforms like YouTube or SoundCloud and search for the song you want to choose, and then add the term edit audio behind it. There are so many accounts that post such audios, so you will find one in no time. Or alternatively, you could just go to TikTok and reuse standard audios. Not to mention, you will also increase your chances of going viral that way. However, there is another method, and honestly, that's the one I would suggest to use well, and that is just downloading the song as it is and editing it yourself. You'll have a lot more freedom that way, and the results will be better as well. Now, if you're wondering how you can do that, well, I'll be teaching that later in the same course. Coming back, select the clip and press L twice to reveal the waveform of the audio. So first things first, we're going to find out where the first beat drop is. You see, the drop seems to be around this portion, so what I'll do is click on the marker. That way I can remember it easily. Now right click on the audio layer and go to keyframe assistant and then select convert audio to keyframes. That will create a new audio layer that we will use to identify beats. Now if I select it and then press U, you can see that it made keyframe for 3 audio channels. But we only just need the one that says both channels, so we're gonna delete the rest. After that, select the slider and go to the graph editor. At first glance, you can see that it's very confusing and even messy, but zoom in on the timeline and you will see that these actually contain spikes. Now, what are these spikes, you may ask? Well, they are beat drops of our audio. The first beat mark is necessary to separate between the intro and the edit, so I'm going to differentiate it from the rest, and for that, I'll double click on it and change its properties and its length. Now that we're done with marking beats on our audio and selecting a space for the intro, we need to create the actual intro. But before that, we have to come up with an idea. This part right here is what decides whether your edit will perform well or not, because it's also the very first thing your audience will see. So yeah, it's very crucial that you get it right. But don't stress, it's not as hard as it might seem. Coming up with an edit idea basically means creating a story. That story could be anything. Your character's badass moment, a sad scene, a funny moment, or anything. If you know the show or the movie, then try to think of a scene that made you feel excited or maybe emotional, and then connect a few dots by thinking of other scenes that could go well with that scene. And voila, there you have it. If you ever get stuck in this process, never hesitate to seek out inspiration. I've already picked a story that fits my edit, so I'm going to import the clips into After Effects now. To do that, right click on the project panel, click on import, then file, and then select the files you prepared. And yes, for those of you wondering, I will talk about how to get high quality clips and scene packs in a moment, so stay tuned. Now, there's only a small section of the video that I need for the intro, so how do I add just that part without messing up the comp? Double click the video file in your project panel. That will open it up in a new preview window. But before everything, let me just throw the clip into the intro folder. Yup, back in the preview window, hover over the section where the clip begins and then press the shortcut Alt and open bracket to mark the start. Then play through, and once the part you want ends, hit Alt and close bracket over there. Now drag the normal clip from the folder to your timeline, and you will see that only the part that we selected was added. Now I know what you're thinking, this was not even necessary for a clip that was already prepared. But in most cases, when you don't have it prepared and the files are very large, you are going to need it. Select the clip and press L twice to reveal the audio waveform. That should bring up an audio waveform. And as you can see, that it also reveals the silent parts of the video which we've got to delete. And why we're deleting this is pretty obvious. People literally have an attention span of a goldfish these days, so we gotta do everything in a fast-paced manner. But do make sure that you don't go overboard with this and make it extremely fast-paced, because some clips need space so that the viewer can take the time to process what's happening. Everything is done in the intro, but we still have an issue. See, this voice line has an audio track which came from the series itself, but this track will overlap with the music, and given the differences, it will cause a whole mess later. But you're in luck, because now I'm gonna teach you how you can remove the music from the audio. From the composition, mute the audio track of the music and select only the track that includes the voiceover. After that, select the composition and then add it to the render queue, and then change the format to WAV. I'll create a new folder to keep all of my rendered assets. That's just something I always do, as it helps me to stay organized. Now just simply hit on the render button. After that, open any browser and go to Vocal Remover. You can find the link in the description as well. Then drag and drop the file we just rendered from After Effects. The AI will take some time to process itself, and after it's processed, hit on the save button from the bottom right corner. That will bring up two options, but we've got to select vocals because that's also what we need. And there you go. Now I'm gonna go to my files and import the audio back into my After Effects. Organize the files, and then I will mute the original audio tracks. With that done, we've successfully made the base for the intro. So now I'm just gonna press Ctrl Shift and C to pre-compose everything. I'll push the composition of the intro away for now, but I will manage the duration later on, so there's no problem. Though there is another problem with the clips. You see, the black bars above and below them are destroying the aesthetic of the edit. And to fix that, we're just gonna press S and increase the value until it disappears. But there's one more important thing left to do, and that is to prepare the base for the main edit itself. Now, making the base edit is simple, but there are a few key things you need to consider to make sure it turns out well. No worries though, cause I'll walk you through each of them. But before that, there is another thing that I want to share with you, which will help you massively in learning not only editing, but also other skills. It is also the exact same thing that helped me gain clients to monetize my editing services, which is why I'm 100% sure that it will be of value to you as well. And I did it all through Skillshare. Now, if you're wondering what it is, well, Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with thousands of courses in topics like art, graphic design, video editing, content creation, filmmaking, freelancing, and so much more. I specifically took the course Freelancing Fundamentals by Magistera, which helped me understand the core basics of freelancing and a proper approach to it. And it came with all the resources that I needed to start monetizing what I truly love doing. Now, learning is something that I'm always focused at, and I assume it's the same for you because you watch these type of educational content. So to give the same opportunity to you as well, I've teamed up with Skillshare to give the first 500 of you who click the link in the description a free month of premium subscription. Now, the seats are very limited, so my advice to you would be that you take your chance quickly. To start off, I'm gonna import the scene pack for the character. If you're wondering what a scene pack is, it's basically a collection of high quality raw clips used for making edits. And getting your hands on one is super easy. Just go to YouTube, search for any character, and add the word scene pack after it. Most of the videos will include a download link in the description, and I highly recommend you to use those links instead of a YouTube downloader, because those things usually eat up quality like crazy, and that's something we don't want. First, I'm gonna add the downloaded files into my clips folder, then double click on it to open it in a separate window. Now, remember the method that I previously taught? Well, that's gonna come in handy here, since doing it the normal way becomes a bit harder in this view. So, hover over the preview bar, and once you find a clip you like, press the open bracket to mark the beginning. Then scrub a bit forward to where the clip ends and press the close bracket. After that, add the clip to your timeline right at the marker. Then press Ctrl Shift and D to cut the extra part and then delete it. Once that's done, I'll double click on the clip to reset the selected area, and once again, using the same technique, I'll add another clip. Now, while adding clips, there's one common mistake beginners make. And you see, when working with a resolution that's different from 16:9, you often need to clean out the black bars and fill the entire composition. But in doing so, the character's position within the frame gets messed up. And the problem is, most people never fix it. But since I'm here to turn you into a pro editor, we're gonna fix that as well. Click on this button to enable the proportional grid. You'll see a set of lines dividing the composition entirely. Now, select your clip and adjust its position so the character is center. I'll do the same with my second clip. Oh, and I forgot to mention, but we're gonna pre-compose every clip that we finalize and sync to the beat. This helps to keep the composition clean and organized. As you can see, I've added clips to all of my markers and followed the steps I just explained. Now if I double click on the intro composition and go inside of it, you'll see that I've already organized everything here as well. So overall the base is fully prepared. Moving on, we're finally going to start editing, and the first step, which is also the most important one, is Twixing the clips. Stick around till the end of this chapter because I'll also share a tip that will literally cut your editing time by 70%, and I'm not even kidding. First, I'm going to zoom into the timeline right around the first marker. Then go to the Effects and Presets panel and search for Twixter Pro. Keep in mind that this is an external plugin, so you will need to download it separately. If you want a tutorial on all the essential plugins and how to install them, just let me know in the comments. Now after we apply this effect, there's a few settings that we need to adjust. First up, we're gonna change the image scrape to contrast or edge enhance, the frame interp to motion weighted blend, and finally the warping to forward. If you're wondering why these specific settings, well, honestly, I don't even know. It's just been this way around. Now to actually bring this effect to life, go to the first frame of your clip and keyframe the speed by clicking on the clock icon. Set the first value to 120, then go to the middle of the same clip or layer and change the speed to 40. This will automatically create another keyframe. Finally, go to the end of the layer and copy-paste the first keyframe. You can leave it like this for a decent result, but if you want to do it like the pros, here's an extra step. Highlight all the keyframes and either press F9 on your keyboard or right-click, go to Keyframe Assistant and select Easy Ease. Then open up the graph editor, make a small selection to reveal the handle and pull it to form a U shape. Yeah, and one last thing, make sure to change the input frame rate to match your clip's frame rate. Mine is 30 FPS, but most scene packs are usually 24 FPS, so keep it accordingly. Moving on, go back to the Effects and Preset panel and search for Transform. Drag and drop it just beneath the Twixter Pro effect. Now one thing that you've got to keep in mind is that Twixter is pretty heavy on performance. I'd recommend pre-composing the layer before applying Transform, or you could just apply it to an adjustment layer instead. Next up, we're going to keyframe the scale property by clicking the clock icon once again. I want to reveal the keyframes in the main layer, so I'll press U twice. Now drag the keyframe to the end of the layer. Now on the very first frame, set the value to 180. After that, we'll create a graph for this movement as well. But first, highlight both keyframes, right-click one, go to Keyframe Assistant and select Easy Ease. Now we can move to the graph editor. This graph is going to look a little different though. Sure, what I'll do is bring out the two handles. Then I'll pull the first one down halfway with a slight slant. Similarly, with the other handle, I'll do the opposite, pull it halfway upward with a slight slant as well. With just a few more adjustments and that is done. Now the next important step is adding motion blur to all of our clips by enabling this button. With that done, we'll be copying and pasting these two effects into all of our layers. To do that, select the clip and while holding Shift, select both effects. Then press Ctrl C to copy them. Move to the other clips and simply press Ctrl V to paste. As you can see, it perfectly matches the ratio. But if we move to this part, you'll notice that the keyframes are slightly mismatched with the clip's duration. So how do we fix it? It's simple, just highlight all the keyframes and while holding Alt, adjust their position like this to scale them proportionally. Same goes for the other clip as well. This one is a bit more tucked in compared to the previous, but the solution is the same. Highlight the keyframes and space them out while holding Alt to maintain the ratio. And that completes our time remapping and movement. But if we look at the intro, it still lacks flavor and looks quite bland. Now to fix that, we have to add some motion here as well. But before we do that, there is another thing we need to add, and that is captions. It's like a magical element that makes your edit so much cooler and ensures that your viewers don't scroll away. For the sake of keeping the composition clean, I'm gonna pre-compose all of our clips again. Over here is my plot twist moment. We'll work on it later, but for now, I'll just add a marker and name it Impact. Now for the subtitles, we first need to create a text layer. To do that, click on the layer from the top region, select New and then click on the text layer. As you can see, it just created a new layer in purple color which says Empty Text Layer. Now without clicking anywhere else, start typing a subtitle. For me, that will be There's a Man in a Mask and below, Head of the Operation. Now you don't need me to tell you that this needs to be adjusted properly on the screen. So let's do that now. Under Paragraph, make sure you select Center Text Alignment. Then open the character menu. You can manage things like font and size over here, but the main thing we want to change right now is the text size. So decrease this value until you like the size. The next thing I want to change is the color of the text. So I'll double click on the layer and from the character menu, change the color to white. But for the text just below, I want something different. So I'll double click just the text I want to change, and from the same section, I'll change it to red. However, as you can see that the full red color is pretty strong and not so soothing. So to fix that, I'll pull the color selector slightly to the right side of the spectrum. But the main thing we want here is something else. We need to match the voice line with the subtitles to give the viewers an even better experience. So for that, I'll press L twice on my keyboard to bring out the audio waveform. But before we go on, let's make sure the text layer is above all of the clips so that it's visible all times. Then what we want to do is go to the area where the spike is low, meaning the voice stops, and apply a cut there. Now similarly, I'll mark all the waveform spikes and apply cuts where necessary. After that, I'll go to each section and change the subtitles accordingly. Okay, once that's done, there is another thing we need to do. We need to make sure that the text does not disturb the main subject, because as you can see, the text is making it hard for the viewers to see the subject. So to manage this, I'll once again enable proportional grid, and then I'll select all the text layers while holding shift. Then drag them down to the bottom of the screen, just like this. So I've done all of the steps for all of my voice lines and typed down subtitles for all of the parts. But these are still far from done, because the main thing here is not the subtitles, but how we animate them. So that's the next thing we're gonna do. Select the text layer and enable effects and presets. Now search for an effect called slow fade on and drag it into your text layer. That'll be it for our animation, but we still need to adjust its settings. So what I'll do is press U on my keyboard to reveal the animation keyframes. Then I'll also bring up the audio waveform by pressing L twice to have a proper reference. Then move the end keyframes a little forward before the voice line actually ends. Highlight them and press F9 to easy ease. Always remember that you need to keep your start keyframe at the time when your voice line starts, and keep the end frame when your voiceover ends or even a little later. Now after we've made the animation for the subtitle, we can't just let it disappear suddenly, because that will look stiff. That's why we're gonna create a basic fade out here. For that, press T to bring up the opacity and animate it from 100 to 0. Now for the next keyframe, we're gonna edit it in a similar way, but we'll change the animation. So search for fade upwards and drag it into your text layer. Similarly for this one as well, I will manage its duration just like we did previously. Now in this manner, I want you to create animations for audio texts. There are a lot of other animations as well, but these three are the most used ones. Now if you want to learn more about other text animations, I've got a whole tutorial for you that has all the cool text animations linked in the description. To spice things up, I want to create another text animation right after the intro ends. Something like a text explosion. So I'll pre-compose the text layer and go inside of it. Now select the text layer and duplicate it as many times as the number of characters in the word. Now we'll use one layer as a mask for one character. Let's break it down. For the bottom layer, I'm going to mask just the first character, which in this case is H. Moving on to the next layer up, which is the third layer in our comp. Then on the second layer, I'll mask the third character. And finally on the topmost layer, we'll mask the last character. That completes our breakdown. Now with that done, highlight all of the layers and press P to bring up the position and add a keyframe. Similarly, press R while holding shift to bring up the rotation keyframe as well. Then go to the third quarter of the layer and change the position of each character in this manner. Something completely random. You also want to randomly change the values of the rotation for all of the layers as well. After we're done laying the keyframes, what we want to do next is highlight all of the keyframes, press F9 to easy ease, and open up the graph editor. For this kind of movement, value graphs are a little hard to use, so we'll use speed graphs instead. Make sure to select all of the keyframes for all layers and pull the first handle like this. And similarly pull the other handle all the way to the left. After that, pull all the end keyframes all the way to the right just like this. And then create a fade out like we did before by animating the opacity. So we finished all of the subtitles and even animated them. But something still feels missing, right? I mean, the animations are fine, but the text in general still looks a bit bland. To fix that and add some life into the text, we're gonna add some effects. First up, search for drop shadow under the effects and presets panel and apply it to your text layer. What this does is add a shadow behind your text and makes it more lively. But we still need to tweak a few settings here. Set the distance to 3, softness to around 30, and then the opacity to 80. And with that, it looks a lot better already. Next, we're going to add deep glow to our layer. Over here, change the exposure to 0.2 and the radius to 200. I think I'll keep this deep blue above the drop shadow, yeah. Now these two settings create a clean looking text effect that you see everywhere on the short platform. And don't get me wrong, you can leave it like this. But for this edit, I personally want something a bit more cartoonish. So I'll search for CC glass and add it to my text layer. Then I'll reduce the surface and change the displacement to 20. But you can see that this effect just ruined what was done before. So to fix that, I'll move CC glass above all effects. Once that's done, copy all three of the text effects at once and paste them into your other text layers as well. Now after we're done with all of the text animations and effects, we're going to need them to pre-compose all of them into a single layer. You'll understand in a moment why we're doing that, but for now, just press Ctrl+Shift+C to pre-compose and make sure these two checkboxes are enabled. So the next thing we're doing is adding some movement in the intro as well. And then we're also gonna create some cool looking advanced one-framers in this section. Alright, now select the first layer and press T to bring up the opacity. Similarly, press S while holding Shift to bring up the scale as well. After that, click on this clock-like icon, yeah that one, to set keyframes for both of those values. Then move the scale keyframe to the end and change the first value to 250. Now highlight both of them and press F9 to easy ease. Then move into the graph editor, make a selection to reveal both of their handles and pull them like this to make a curve similar to mine. What this means is there will be maximum movement at the beginning and then the movement rate will start to slow down. Or in other words, we're creating a zoom transition. Now let's go back to the opacity keyframe. Move it slightly away from the beginning and change the first value to 0. So for the next clip, we also want a bit of a fade between the two clips, which is why make sure they are overlapped slightly. Then go ahead and create the same animation for both scale and opacity just like we did for the first one. Or if you're lazy like me, you can just copy and paste the keyframes and manage the ratio like we did earlier in the effects section. Now for this one though, there's something extra I want to add. You see the fade we just made is alright, but to make it spicy, we're gonna throw some blur onto it. For that, you can use the default camera lens blur, or what I would suggest you is to go with the PCC OBS lens blur. That one gives you way more control and honestly, a way cooler look. Now let's adjust a few things over here. For the gamma, pull it all the way to 1000. Then we're going to keyframe the iris scale. Keep the first keyframe, whose value is 15, right at the beginning of the clip. Then somewhere around the middle, create another keyframe and bring down the value to 0. Now highlight both of these keyframes, press F9 to easy ease, and create a smooth graph here just like we did before. Now I'm gonna come here to the intersection and zoom in on the timeline, right where the first marker is located. Then I'll press Ctrl, Alt and Y to create an adjustment layer and use Alt and open bracket and Alt and close bracket to make it exactly 1 frame long. Now I'm gonna duplicate this layer by pressing Ctrl D. I'll do that 3 times in total. Then just distribute them like this. So here's the plan. Each of these 1 frame layers is going to have a different distorted effect. That's what creates the overall 1 framer glitch moment. And you don't have to stress about getting it right. In fact, there is nothing such as right. Just throw on something chaotic in each layer and let it play. That randomness is what gives 1 framer its charm. But for reference, here's what I'm gonna do on my end. On the first layer, I'm gonna add as scan lines and deep glow. Then I'll move to the second one and throw in an offset. Change the shift center slightly to the left. Right below that, I'll add directional blur and increase the blur length. And then I'll top that off with another deep glow so there is a harmony between all of the framers. Finally, on the last layer, I'll go ahead and add as edge detect. Add deep glow onto it for the sake of harmony between all of the framers. Now I know this part can get confusing, but just remember, the whole point of 1 framer is to be random, so don't overthink it. The ones I showed you are some of the most commonly used combos. But trust me, there's a ton of 1 framer styles out there. You just have to get a little creative with your effects. Now at this point, you should already have a pretty average edit that you can post. But let's be real, an average edit is not what you're here for. So now we're gonna move into the advanced section, starting off with color grading. To begin, drag the subtitles composition above all the layers. I'll explain why in just a second, but for now, pre-compose the main edit into 1 single layer. Just make sure the subtitle and audio layers stay out of it. Now, the reason we're doing this is simple. The text layer, which contains your subtitles, should always stay above the color grading layer. If it's underneath, it's going to be affected by the grading, and the subtitles will end up looking super trash. So now, before we move on to coloring, here's one extra step that can make your edit look smoother. Head over to the effects and presets and search for RSMB Pro. Then apply it to your main edit layer. After that, change the main BZ blur amount to 1 and set sensitivity to 100. What this does is add motion blur based on movement, which can make the edit feel a lot smoother overall. Finally, let's move on to the actual color grading part. First, create an adjustment layer by pressing Ctrl Alt and Y. My approach to color grading is done in 3 layers, so I'm gonna duplicate it 2 more times and make it a total of 3. Then I'll rename the first one to quality because we'll be enhancing that here. The second one, which is our main grading layer, I'll rename it to CC. And the last one will be called adjustments since we'll use it to fix lighting and exposure. On the first layer, we're going to add an effect called unsharp mask. Change the radius to 25 and you'll instantly see your colors pop and the footage gets that nice sharpened look. Next up, we're adding curves. How you adjust this really depends on your clip's lighting, and honestly, there's a whole science behind it. But for TikTok style edits, there's a common curve that gets used. I'm gonna show you that one here. And finally, we're adding CC vignette to pull the attention to the center and add some shadows around the edge. I'll slightly increase the amount here as well. And that's it for the quality layer. Now, if you compare it to before, you'll already see a massive difference. But now we're getting into real stuff, the color correction. For this part, you'll need an external plugin called Magic Bullet Looks. So go to your effects and presets and search for Looks. Then drag and drop it into your second adjustment layer. Here, you'll see a button called Edit. So just click that. Now on the left side, you'll see a library full of presets. And honestly, most of these are good enough in itself to just pick and use. But we're gonna make a custom one. So we'll close that by clicking the Looks button on the bottom left. Then on the bottom right, hit the Tools tab. You'll see a bunch of effects and this is where we start building our custom CC. First, add H Flare from the camera section. Then add 8 softness. You could add duotone, but it does not fit my clips, so I'm removing it. Finally, from the film section, add duotone. Once all those are added, we'll tweak a few settings. And trust me, this part varies from clip to clip. Start with its softness. I think I'll expand the area of focus. Then go to the Controls tab, setting quality to 10 and bumping the blur size to 15. I'll also widen the horizontal radius a bit more. Now onto Haze Flare. It already looks amazing by default, so you can either leave it as it is or tweak it like I'm doing here. And for the 2-stage process, I'm reducing the strength down to 70 to keep it subtle. Once you're happy, hit the check mark in the top right and boom, your CC is now done. Back in the After Effects timeline, toggle it on and off, you'll clearly see the difference it makes. But something still feels a little off. So for my clip, the final issue seems to be exposure. So to fix that, go to the third adjustment layer and add the exposure effect. The clip looks a little dark, so I think I'll increase it. Maybe 1. Okay, that's a bit too much. So let's settle for around 0.7. Our color grading is officially complete. Now let's check out a few clips from before and after coloring. And yeah, no question, this looks way cooler. And with that done, the color grading section is complete, which means we're officially entering the final phase of this course. And hey, if you're still here, thank you, I genuinely appreciate you. But now the moment you've all been waiting for. This part is like the lost art of editing these days. It's simple to do, but it levels up your entire video. And that is sound design and SFX. But before we dive into complex SFX, let's start by adjusting the audio layer of the music itself. So right here at the beginning, I'll bring up the audio labels by pressing L once. I'm going to set the volume to around -30. We actually made that -12. Now I'll press this cock-like icon to create a keyframe and drag it a little to the right. Then on the very first frame, I'll drop the volume to -26. This animation creates a simple fade-in. We'll spice this up later, but for now, let's focus on getting the basics right. And as you can hear, that already sounds way better than before. Now let's move to the next marker, the plot movement. I've been teasing this since the beginnings, so now let me break down the game plan. I'll go to the marker and place a keyframe around it. Then I'll move a few frames away from the marker and drop the volume down to -26. That's still not fully muted. Let's go more extreme. Drop it to -36. Yep, that's the one. Sounds clean now. Finish this audio flow, we also need to bring the beat back after the voice line ends. This is where the impact hits. So I'll head to the beat marker, place a keyframe, then move a few frames forward and set a volume to -20. The reason I didn't keep this one to 36 also was because I want a progressive rise, not just a flat explosion. Now for the final keyframe, I'll return it to the default volume 0, so it blends back in naturally. But right now, it still sounds a little meh, so let's add a bit more energy. Before that though, let's create a fade out for the outro. Just reverse the process, animate the audio from 0 to -36, and boom. Now back to that impact section, we'll give it an extra boost using effects. Go to effects and presets and search for bass and treble. Drag it onto your audio layer. Then keyframe both the bass and treble values. Press U to reveal keyframes, highlight them and align them to the marker, right where we placed the end audio keyframes earlier. Then change both bass and treble to -100, slightly before the fade starts. And as you can hear, it's a lot more powerful now. That drop really hits. To make this even cooler, I'm going to copy all those keyframes and paste them at the end of the timeline as well. Then I'll right-click, Keyframe Assistant, and select Time Reverse Keyframes. What that does is literally flip the audio transition, perfect for outros or final build-ups. I'll also adjust the ratio of the keyframes using the beat markers as reference. Yup, that's exactly how we wanted it to sound. You've probably heard this kind of effect in edit audios before, and now you know how it's made. So I already had a few SFX prepared before recording. I'm just gonna drag and drop them into the timeline. I'll tell you where I got them in a second, but for now, we're gonna add an SFX to the plot moment. For this kind of V-drop, a whoosh is perfect, so I'm using that. Normally, you'd match the spike of your SFX with the beat marker, but in this case, it's a bit tricky to find, so we're gonna use the same trick we did before. Right-click the SFX, go to Keyframe Assistant, and select Convert Audio to Keyframes. Now select the new audio amplitude layer, press U to reveal keyframes, and go to Slider. Next, press the Graph Editor, and boom. You can clearly see the spike of the SFX. Quit the Graph Editor, go back to the SFX layer, press Shift and 8 to add a marker right at the spike. Now match that marker with your beat drop marker. Then we can delete the audio amplitude layer, and now let's take a listen. As you probably noticed, the SFX is a little too loud and a bit too long, so let's fix that. Press L while holding Shift to bring up audio levels. Create a keyframe at the marker and change the value to -8. Then for the starting point, drop it to -36. Now that's more like it. To keep things tidy, I'll go to where the first keyframe starts and press close bracket to trim out the empty space. So I've got this beat drop style sound that fits perfectly. Let's add it in. Double press L to reveal the waveform. For this one, it's pretty nice and clear, so I can see the spike. Now I'll align it perfectly with the character reveal. Then press Shift and L to open up the audio levels. Set it to -15. Let's have a listen. Okay, sounds alright, but maybe a bit too long. So again, bring up audio levels and create a fade from -15 to -36. Alright, we're almost done, but here's one last thing. To make all these SFX feel more natural and cinematic, we're going to add reverb. First, recompose the SFX layers into one composition. Then go to Effects and Presets, search for reverb and apply it. And just like that, apply reverb to all of your SFX layers. And while you add it, go inside your Edit Comp and apply reverb to the voice line layer as well. For settings, I'll just leave it as default. No need to tweak anything here. So I've only taught the basics of SFX and audio edit over here, but if you want to learn it in depth, I've got a tutorial for you with all sorts of techniques, which I will tell later at the end. But before all of that, congratulations, you've officially made it. Your edit is now complete. Now all that's left is to render it out and post it to Instagram or TikTok. So let's do it the right way. First, recompose everything into a single composition. I'm gonna name it Final Edit. Then go to the top menu, click on Composition and select Add to Render Queue. Now in the Render Queue panel, if you're using Adobe After Effects 2023 or above, just select H.264 and you're good to go. But if you're using an older version, let's say 2022 or below, you'll need to do a few things. Select QuickTime, then go to Format Options and make sure the video codec is set to Apple ProRes 420p HQ. After that, click OK. Since I'm on A2025, I'll revert mine back to H.264. Next, hit the button that says output to and choose where to save your file. I already made a folder for render output, so I'll drop mine there. Rename your edit to whatever you like and hit save. And finally, hit render and then pray to God that your PC does not blast. So if you're wondering what to watch next, I've already got a playlist right here in the middle of your screen. And hey, thank you to everyone who stuck around till the end of this course. With all that said, I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.